What's up, Good Life family? Hope you guys are doing all right. Today, on this Tuesday, I just wanted to come to you guys with a word out of our Good Life journal and a word that is from Jesus, and he's talking about unity. So I want to read the passage and then dive into it together. This is in John chapter 17. I'm going to start at verse 15. He says, "I do not ask," and just to clarify, this is Jesus praying to the Father, and this is from what we know in the scripture. I mean, the next chapter is the betrayal of Jesus. He's about to be crucified. This is, from what I can tell, this is during the Passion Week. So this is verse 15. It says, this is Jesus praying to the Father. "I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them, even as you loved me." And this is a great charge and an urge from Jesus towards unity. And there's really three things that I see in the progression here if we're going to look at unity. And the first is right there in verse 15, where Jesus says, I find this so interesting. He says, "I don't ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one." I think it's important for us to recognize during this time that God is in control. Jesus is in control. In verse 15, isn't it interesting that he doesn't say, God, remove them, take them away. Instead, no, he says, I don't ask that you take them out of the world, but as they're in the world, keep them from the evil one. I pray that that would be a charge for you and I today, that I believe that in God's sovereignty, he has you and me appointed to be living right here, right now, in the places that we are in his sovereignty. So let's not be so quick just to remove ourselves from the situation, but instead, how can we follow Jesus and be faithful during this time? There's a couple ways I think we can do that. We see verse 16 through 19, as we go further, Jesus says, "They're not of the world, just as I'm not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is the truth." And then in 19, he says, "For their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth." So we recognize God's sovereignty, but also let's be people that during this time are pouring the truth into ourselves. I encourage you to be spending time with the Lord through prayer, through reading scripture. I'm reading through the Good Life journal and trying to make that a habit of my life. And we're reading through, John right now. We're also reading in Joshua in the Old Testament. I would encourage you to pick that up. And just as we're all quarantined, as we're socially distancing, let's make sure that we're filling our hearts and our souls with truth. And then lastly, I think just this powerful charge from Jesus that he says, "I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me." I think that's a beautiful image, that for the world to see our unity. And he says this, that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. There's this connection that Jesus is making, that part of the way that the world will see him, part of the way that the world will see Jesus and the love of God is through the church being unified and loving one another. So just three simple things today. Recognize God's sovereignty, be in his truth and his word, and then also let's love one another. Let's love one another well by remaining connected. And I would encourage you today, reach out to somebody in our church family and just ask them how they're doing, and let's remain unified, because it could be possible that as Jesus is praying, which by the way is so cool that Jesus is not only praying for his disciples, but he's praying for us. He says, "I do not ask for these only, the disciples, but also for those who will believe in me through their word." And that's you and I. And I think that's so cool that Jesus prayed for you, Jesus prayed for me, and what he prays right here is that we would remain unified. So let's be good neighbors to our community and help them see Jesus by being a people who rejoice in God's sovereignty, who study his truth, and who finally remain unified together. Love you guys.